This is actually being sampled pretty accurately by one of the Doppler radar sites up toward Detroit Metro Airport. So we're getting a fairly good signal that there is, in fact, some rotation within this particular storm that is just east of 23. So let's get very local with this. And again, the spin around this, it is east of 23, pretty close to London. There's maybe just a mile or so outside of that circulation where we're seeing a little indication of some inflow within this particular thunderstorm. Some of the rising air coming in to the storm itself, and some indications are that there is some rotation. So there's an official tornado warning. This is in effect for northern Monroe County, and this is going to be in effect till 9:45. Current time is 9:04, and the tornado warning at this point indicated by Doppler radar, showing some indications of some rotation. And this is going to be moving fairly quickly off to the east. These storms have been moving at about 50 to 55 miles per hour, and it does continue with that quick forward motion, showing that storm in particular is now already raced off to the east. In fact, this particular storm is already east of Dundee, moving east at 50 miles per hour, and is going to quickly be moving across northern parts of Monroe County. And even in the past few moments, some of that tighter rotation that we'd seen on First Alert Doppler radar, not quite as evident right now on First Alert Doppler radar. Tornado warning in effect for northern Monroe County until 9:45 p.m. We'll take a look at that velocity signature again. It does show a little bit of an indication of some rotation within that storm. That is now east of Dundee, right around in between London and maybe is where we've got some slight indication of a little bit of rotation. We're not seeing it as strong on radar as it was just about 4 to 5 minutes ago, and we're getting fairly quick samples of this particular cell as it's very close to some of our local radar sites up towards Detroit Metro and across northern Monroe County. So officially that tornado warning. All areas north of M50 need to be extra alert to this one. If you're in Monroe County, south of M50, this will not pose any risk to you at all. So if you are south of M50 toward Ida, Summerfield, even in Monroe, I don't expect that you're going to be under the risk of anything with this particular storm. Where we have that tornado warning is extreme northern parts of Monroe County, and this is going to be until 9:45. And as we'll pull this tornado warning slate off the camera here, and we'll get in specifically where we have that tornado warning. It's the southwest edge of this particular cell that was showing some indications of some rotation. So precise location on this one. So there's London. You are on the far western edge of the tornado warning, stretching across toward maybe. It's right in this distinct area that we're seeing a little bit of rotation, perhaps even a little bit of a hook on the southern edge of this one, which would just indicate that there are winds flowing into and winds flowing out of this particular cell. So we're right in between London and maybe. This is all north of the River Raisin, north of M50, where we have this tornado warning. There has not been any confirmation yet, and we're in direct communication with the National Weather Service office. This tornado warning was issued just moments ago. It was issued just before 9 o'clock, and radar indicated that there is a potential tornado with this. So again, it's nothing that has been confirmed on the ground, but it was a storm that is at least capable, based on what we're seeing on First Alert Doppler radar, of potentially producing a tornado located east of maybe or near maybe, east of Dundee, moving east now between 40 to 50 miles per hour. This is a very quick moving storm, and that tornado warning is going to remain in effect until we see indications that it is not rotating any longer, or indications that that rotation has somewhat weakened. The tornado warning itself was issued just a few minutes before 9 o'clock, and it is for the potential of rotation. And where we're seeing that rotation, and again, the western edge of that tornado warning, right around London, extending toward maybe. And that goes across northern Monroe County, but the area of concern right here is in between London and maybe. And if you're, again, south of the River Raisin, south of M50, this is not going to be posing a risk to you. We can highlight the distinct location here. Again, there's Dundee to Monroe. If you're north of that line, even north of Raisinville, I expect you're going to be clear of that one. It is a very distinct area just on the southwest corner of this particular storm that has shown a couple scans on First Alert Doppler radar of some rotation. And we get very clear data with this particular storm. One of the advantages is very close to some of our Doppler radar sites, so we get indications very close to the ground where there could be potentially at least a little bit of low-level rotation, something that we are currently and actively still seeing on First Alert Doppler radar with some of the latest data that is continuing to come in, some of the spin in the atmosphere and some high winds perhaps that are going to continue as this storm even departs, moving east at about 40 to 50 miles per hour. It's got pretty good forward speed on it, and it will continue that trek to the east. It's going to be headed toward the 275 corridor. So again, this is staying north of M50. There's 275 right where it splits with I-75. So it's going to be headed up toward the 275 corridor, right in between the split with I-75. And it looks like the county border up there with Wayne County. So we do expect that the quick motion of that's going to be moving about 40 to 45 miles per hour. And I can show you exactly where that's headed. We'll put some times of arrival out on this particular cell as this continues to move. And again, it's moving very quickly. I'm going to highlight the area where I expect the worst concern could be with this possible indication of some rotation. It is right on the western edge of this cell, moving to the east right around 45 miles per hour. And it's right over pretty close to the maybe area right now. It's going to be headed toward Ash right around 922. And then these are some areas that are within the 275 or I-75 corridor over toward Berlin and Maple Beach is where that's going to be tracking. So we're pretty close to the extreme northern edge of Monroe County, where we do have that active tornado warning that is going to be in effect until 9:45. We are still actively seeing on some of the latest scans some of the indications that there is some rotation with this. And it's what we look at with First Alert Doppler radar. Again, the ability to look inside where the winds are moving, which direction that they're moving. And we look for what's typically called a couplet, where we see those green colors aligned very close and in proximity with some of those red colors. And that's exactly what we're seeing in this particular area. There's some indication that we're getting some of those colors that are showing, at least on the trailing edge of that particular cell, some rotation within this particular cell that is north of Raisinville. And you can see very clearly there is the River Raisin, M50. You're going to be just fine in Monroe. If you're in the city of Monroe, you are just fine. That tornado warning is going to stay north of you. If you're in Dundee, you are fine as well. The rotation is north and east of you and headed toward the 275 corridor, headed toward Ash, and eventually up there toward Detroit Metro Airport, just off the 275 corridor. Should be seeing north of that split with I-75, where we're seeing that particular rotation. And this has been several scans now that has shown at least some tight rotation or potentially some lower level rotation. Nothing is confirmed on the ground at this point, but there are indications from Doppler radar itself that we're seeing some potential for some spin on the trailing edge of this storm. And it's moving very quickly, 40 to 45, even up to 50 miles per hour. This particular cell was the one that moved across Lenawee County, came across with some gusty winds, came through Adrian and Tecumseh. There were a few reports in some areas of winds to about 60 miles per hour. Some tree damage that was reported across the Route 127 corridor towards the Hillsdale-Lenawee County line. But there was very limited reports of any damage as that made its way across Lenawee County and into Monroe County. And then we had that area of rotation that kind of spawned up and allowed a tornado warning to be issued for the northern part of Monroe County. Seeing some indications, that, at least on Doppler radar, that this isn't anything that's tightening as far as the rotation or anything that is going to persist for a long duration amount of time. But that tornado warning itself, and we've seen these warnings trim back early or allowed to be canceled early based on the latest data that we have. And as it stands right now, it's in effect until 9:45. And as what we continue to do with that, though, we continue to shrink the area of concern, though. And each time you see that tornado polygon begin to blink on your screen, It's an adjustment or a reissuance of that tornado warning, which shrinks the risk area as that storm moves to the east at about 45 miles per hour. So areas like Dundee and London, you are absolutely in the clear. This warning is now well east of you and is headed over toward the I-275 corridor, where there's no doubt the potential for some gusty winds and the threat that we get that storm, or at least a little that spin in the atmosphere. We continue to get data coming in with First Alert Doppler radar and some of the latest scans on this one. We can actually see the sweeps, if you look very close, go by, and they're sampling the atmosphere, and we're getting some of the latest information very quickly as that comes through. Does appear that we're seeing some broader rotation, at least at this point, with the tailing edge of this little couplet that it tried to develop. Just a radar-indicated potential for a tornado at this point. That's something we're keeping a close eye on. We'll switch back over to our sweeping radar feature. We still do officially have that tornado warning. It's going to be getting very close to the 475 corridor. The particular rotation that we're seeing still is in the western edge of this tornado warning, which is now in between Maybe and Ash. It's in this particular area. It appears a little disjointed on radar now. It's not something that's continuous or connected, which would lead me to believe that we're seeing less of a structure associated with this particular storm that would hold it together for a long duration amount of time. So that is something that we continue to see and continue to sample on radar. It doesn't appear anything that's going to hold together for an extended amount of time, but this is the northern extent of Monroe County, where we're getting that just little indication right there of some rotation that had been showing up just south of the border with Monroe County and up there into what is the Wayne County area, just off of the 275 corridor. So that tornado warning still in effect until 9:45. It does include extreme northern parts of Monroe County. City of Monroe, I've given you the all clear. This does not impact you anywhere north of M50, though. You do need to pay at least close attention to this, as this particular tornado warning still is in effect. I do suspect it will be canceled early with the speed of this. 9:45. It's going to be gone out of Monroe County by 9:45. We can tell that very clearly, but that area of rotation is entering in toward the 275 corridor. So this is extreme northern parts of Monroe County, and eventually it's going to be crossing the 275 corridor. I don't suspect that tornado warning will stick around long, though, with what we're seeing on Doppler radar. The rotation beginning to weaken a little bit. We're hopeful that we can get that tornado warning to expire a little bit earlier, as we're seeing less and less of a sign of any significant rotation. We continue to check in with our friends over at the National Weather Service. We collaborate with them, and they're saying that the severe thunderstorm is capable of producing a tornado, and it continues to move east at about 35 miles per hour. That was the latest that came in from them just moments ago. They do expect that this tornado warning will continue for a bit longer for the potential of that rotation. This is north of Monroe, north of M50, and as we look off in the distance beyond the I-75 junction, you're looking toward Estrel Beach there, and that extends then up into more so the Detroit metro area, where we're seeing that potential rotation that will be moving through. Radar indicated, which means nothing has been confirmed on the ground, and this is going to be in effect as we go through the evening until 9:45. I do suspect that will be allowed to cancel early. We're going to stay with the coverage, though, just a little bit longer till we get some of the latest data on this, just to indicate and make sure that we have seen that rotation that was evident, very clearly evident, for about 10 to 15 minutes, right around the 9 o'clock, right around the turn of the hour at 9 o'clock, making sure that is weakened before we send you back to your regularly scheduled programming. Tornado warning, it is in effect until 9:45. Otherwise, very limited amounts of severe weather reported across the area. Had a couple storms that came across parts of Lenawee County and Hillsdale County that did bring the potential of some higher winds. Those have since moved to the east. In fact, we've been tracking that one particular storm that is in Monroe County. That was the same one that came through northern Lenawee County that we covered over on Facebook Live, that came through Adrian and Tecumseh and came across into Monroe County, right through Dundee, and just as quickly zipped across northern Monroe County and is getting ready to exit eventually looking like it may even miss much of the Detroit metro area, just head over into Lake Erie and over to Ontario, where that's going to be headed. So officially the tornado warning still in effect. That tornado warning is in effect until 9:45. It shows significant weakening, though, of the rotation that was evident just about 15 minutes ago. So it does look like that we're seeing less of a signature toward that rotation. It was fairly tight for at least a couple good scans on First Alert Doppler radar. Some minor indications, though, that we're still seeing a little bit of rotation that is just headed toward Carlton. That is the area that we're seeing it, and eventually that's going to be headed toward Flat Rock, and then up into the southern edge of the Detroit metro. So the area of rotation now is approaching the 470 or 275 corridor, and is eventually going to be working then toward Flat Rock and over toward Rockwood. At this point, what we're seeing in our local area, I do not expect that this is going to be a threat for any part of our viewing area, as this will be allowed to expire, and it will be something that is no longer posing a risk of rotation. As we did see it a little bit closer to the top of the hour, right around 9 o'clock, there was that tornado warning that is in effect, still officially until 9:45, but the latest data on this one would suggest that this has weakened and is no longer posing a threat to our area. So with that, we will send you back to your regularly scheduled programming. We'll continue to update you on the First Alert Weather app. We will update you on Facebook Live like we did earlier in the evening. Should we need to continue coverage, though, we will be back right here on air on WTO11 and Fox 36. And your latest First Alert forecast will be coming up at Fox 36 at 10 and on WTOL at 11 p.m. Have a safe evening.